Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us again this week. I have a special guest with me this week, Starlyn Haneman. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. So Starlyn, what a beautiful name, by the way. It's so unique. You must have heard it quite a few times.
Yes, everyone comments on my name.
Yes. So congrats to your parents. They were original. Starlyn, you are an integrative health coach. And basically the way you described is that you went from overwhelmed and anxious and, drinking to cope with stress and parenting to now being alcohol free and not living with anxiety anymore. And now you're coaching people on how to basically be anxiety free. So we can't wait for you to give us the tips and tricks, because it's sad, and I don't have the statistics. I heard them like last week about anxiety, how many people suffer from anxiety. It's just crazy. It's overwhelming. It's the majority of people actually suffer from anxiety. It's over 50%. So let's talk a bit about your journey. How did you get to decide I'm going to help people live anxiety free?
The anxiety free portion, deciding on that has been fairly recently decided. Before that, I was really committed to helping people lead healthier lives through, food, nutrition, sleep, like regular lifestyle behavior change. And only recently have I really decided that the reason that I made all those changes in my life was because of my anxiety, and that I could help other people improve their mental health through their physical health. So about 4 years ago, I quit drinking because my anxiety had gotten to a point where I was having panic attacks. And I realized that I could not continue to live that way. I'm a mom. I have 2 little girls. I could not keep drinking as a coping mechanism. And so I went to the doctor. They gave me medication for anxiety, and I didn't like how it made me feel. And then I soon found out that the reason that they don't want you drinking when you're on anxiety medication is you can black out. And so I decided I had to make a choice. And it was, do I keep drinking as a coping mechanism? Do I quit drinking and take the medication? Like, what do I do? And I realized that I wanted to make the changes in my life that they put all the information out there of like, oh, if you change your lifestyle, this could help with anxiety. But I had wanted the quick fix. I didn't want to deal with the uncomfortableness of what that could look like. So I had kept drinking. So once I made the decision to quit drinking, I read a book. The book helped me. It was Annie Grace, This Naked Mind, helped reframe some things in my mind. And I started to meditate and use a gratitude journal. And between those 3 things, it was like my life completely changed. But then I started looking at the lifestyle that I like. I'd been using exercise as a way to change my body. But when I realized I could use exercise and movement as a way to change my mind, suddenly moving my body became really easy. Like, exercising wasn't a chore anymore. It was how I kept my sanity. And sleep became like #1 priority. And I just realized that all these really simple lifestyle changes were benefiting me in ways that I didn't realize that they could. And so I decided to go to coaching school. I went to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and learned how to be a coach, and started coaching people around lifestyle change. And then now I'm like, I want to help people with anxiety, because like you said, the statistics are through the roof. I just read a statistic. I think it's like 86% of mothers have anxiety. And I'm like, that's just insane. And so if I can help just a few people to
Mm.
reduce that, like I feel like I will have like done what I needed to do here on earth.
Yeah, and you said so many, crucial point in there. We're gonna dissect this, but let's start with one thing. You were drinking to reduce your anxiety, and what most people don't know or don't realize is that anxiety is actually a depressant, and it's actually causing anxiety in your body. And we don't realize it because, you start drinking, you get the buzz, so you think, okay, I'm feeling better, but it actually increases your anxiety. And then when you're not drinking, your anxiety is higher. So what do you do to lower it again? You drink again, and that's just a very vicious cycle. I was there too, and congrats for stopping. And the other part that you mentioned is, really the physical health, how we forget how much it's good for the mental health. And I want to really dive into that a bit more. What is your routine, Leo, like your daily routine or the one that you recommend?
So I have sort of a framework that I follow, but I've found that the easiest way for me to stay consistent and to be able to continue to show up is to not make it strict because I don't like restriction. I feel like a lot of ideas around routines, exercise, eating are very restrictive. So I try and keep it really open. And one of the things that I coach around is to tune in and trust your body, to learn to listen to ourselves. I feel that we don't trust ourselves, especially as women. We're looking for outside sources to tell us what we're supposed to do. And I want to change that. I want us to know that our bodies have wisdom. They have the answers within them. We just have to quiet the noise enough to hear it. And so I try and get movement. I don't even really call it exercise anymore because exercise feels like sounds like a punishment, almost how like the society has framed it. So it's just movement. So I walk a lot every day. It moves the energy through me, but I love to like lift weights in the morning because it just feels like a good release. So in the mornings, I do my lifting of weights, I meditate, I have a gratitude journal, and those three things first thing in the morning, like get my mind right, they get my body like the energy going. I got the good endorphins. I'm like ready for anything at that point. But it's
Oh,
different for everyone.
yeah, sorry. How long do you lift weight for?
30 to 45 minutes,
Okay.
but that's like 3, 4 days a week if I feel like it. If I wake up and I'm like, I am tired,
Hmm.
I need more sleep. I respect that and I will try and go back to sleep. I struggle to fall back asleep once I'm awake, but maybe I just get up and stretch, or maybe I feel like I need to do some yoga. Like I just listen to what I need that day and go with that. I don't want to be like, I have to lift weights 3 days a week for 45 minutes and that's the end all. Like, I think that that's where people go wrong because when you quote unquote fail, when you don't do what you said, then you're like, I did it again, I couldn't do it, and then you quit. And that's how we can't get that routine built and that consistency to show up for ourselves.
You're absolutely right. When you let yourself down once, then you don't trust yourself the next time you do a promise, and then that too is a vicious circle.
Yeah. So walking, you can walk, right? Like most people can walk. If you can be like, I'm going to walk 3 days a week out in the sunshine for 15 minutes or for 10 minutes, that's a really easy win. And you can retrain your brain to be like, I do show up for myself. I do those things. Like, I do love myself. Look at that. And then your mind starts to think, oh, what else can I do?
Awesome. What about meditating? How long do you meditate?
Meditation is usually 10 to 15 minutes. I would love to stretch that to an hour just to push myself, but I have kids. We've got morning breakfast, those sorts of things. Once they leave, then I start my work for the day. So I usually meditate for 10 to 15 minutes in the morning, and then at night I'll try and get another 15 minutes. But I'm not, a serious meditator. I haven't gone to any meditation retreats, but I do find that it helped my anxiety with being present. I learned how to sit through things that felt kind of uncomfortable, and I learned that it was safe and I
Mm.
could let my mind do what it needed to do. Because when I was drinking, I I didn't want to feel anything. I was afraid of feeling uncomfortable. So I would quiet that by numbing it out with alcohol.
Yeah. Oh, I know that feeling too well. What about food? What's your food routine?
I I used to be, I don't want to say restrictive, but I I love, delicious, healthy, whole foods. Like I love those things. I think they taste wonderful. They make me feel wonderful. But I've really reframed over the last couple of years how I view food. I think that as a society, we have this diet culture where there's good and there's bad, and we can get it into our heads that it's almost like a moral situation. And if we eat the cake, then we're doing something bad. And that just feels so restrictive and ridiculous to me because we are humans and we should enjoy our life. And if you allow yourself to have that cake, be present in the moment, enjoy it. Don't belittle yourself for it. Don't, the amount of trash talking we do to ourselves is ridiculous. So enjoy it, be present, be like, oh my gosh, that cake was so good. And when you allow yourself to have it, it takes away that restriction, which takes away the fun of eating it, right? Like when you're a kid and you just want to eat all the candy because you're not supposed to, it's because you're not supposed to. But if you're just allowed to have it, well, there's no excitement. So you won't keep eating it.
Yeah.
So my food thing is eat the healthy, like eat those like whole foods, the vegetables. I love vegetables. Like a ridiculous amount. Like my kids make a lot of fun of me, but they make me feel good. But I've started to listen to how I feel rather than following someone told me that I should eat these superfoods and I need to have this and this and this. It started to feel like, am I getting enough of this? The amount of pressure I felt to fulfill a certain amount of things and check enough boxes, it was increasing my anxiety. And is it organic? Isn't it organic? All the things that we have to think about now, it's information overload. And I've come to the conclusion that the stress from that is probably more unhealthy than, say, eating the cupcake or the non-organic version. Like, take the stress out of it and enjoy it and go from there.
Yeah. And especially as mothers, I don't know about you, but me, like it was one thing what I was putting in my body, but what I was thinking about putting in my kid's body, it's like it had to be perfect. It had to be, I was putting myself so much pressure to be the good mom. And I like your style of like being non-restrictive because you also teach moderation, because you teach like you don't have to overdo it. My son didn't touch sugar for the first 5 years of his life. And then we went to a party and someone gave him a pop. He drank that thing so fast, I thought he would like choke or something. And it became like the thing now that he wants is sugar,
Yeah.
probably because I restricted him so much into you're not touching it. So restrictions are not healthy either. And I like your style on that. So how do you coach people? I'm assuming it's mostly mothers that you're dealing with.
That is mostly who my clientele has been, is moms, just because that's who I really relate to.
And like, how do you take them through a session, let's say, into really working on their anxiety? Like, give us tips here on smaller things that we can do.
Okay. So one of the big things I coach around is to tune in and trust your body.
Mm.
And so we need to learn how to like listen to ourselves. So I like to do things in very small steps. I think we get this big picture of what our goals or our vision is going to be. And I personally get very overwhelmed by a big picture. I immediately think, I can't do that. That's too much. How will I ever accomplish it? And then I don't even start.
Mm.
So I keep that in mind when I'm coaching people, that we want to get the big picture when I first start working with them. Like, what would you like your life to look like, right? But then we scale it back and we start to work on the different fundamentals. And what's the smallest step you can take? I think our culture talks a lot, like our hustle culture, and it's like maximum effort. How big of a move can you make? How much can you change? And I'm more about minimum effort. Like, what's the very smallest step that you can take so that you can get those wins? Like I talked about earlier with the walking. Let's take little teeny tiny bite-sized steps so you can start to see that you do show up for yourself and that you aren't ever failing. So that's some of the stuff I go through with basics when it comes to eating, movement. We focus a lot on sleep because we are all so sleep deprived in our culture, and we don't realize what an impact that's having on our movement and our anxiety and our eating. And so when you can learn to prioritize your sleep, all the different aspects of your life that will change just through that one thing alone is incredible. But most people put that on the back burner as though I'll sleep when I'm dead, that sort of concept.
That's, yeah, and that's such, like, now that you're saying it and I'm hearing it, it's such a benign thing that we're saying, and it's so ridiculous.
It is so ridiculous. And so many people, like I know as moms, like we have a lot going on and we have to like take care of little people and make sure they're doing all their things. But if we don't take care of ourselves, I personally have seen a major shift. I used to be so impatient and angry and resentful, and I yelled so much at my kids. Like I have a lot of guilt around that now because I'm like, wow, I did not need to treat my children that way. They were just little people trying to navigate a big, scary world. And I was a person that couldn't handle feelings trying to navigate a very scary world.
Mm,
So I took it out on them because I didn't know how to, navigate that because I wasn't taking care of myself. I put myself on the back burner. And once I started prioritizing my actual needs, it wasn't, we hear a lot about self-care. And I was always like, I can't do that. And to me, self-care is the mental and physical health. It's not going to the salon, it's not getting my nails done, it's not a bubble bath. Those things don't speak to me, but taking time to prioritize my health, for me, that is self-care. And once I prioritized that, I became a whole different person. My parenting style changed completely. I don't yell anymore unless it's like I've asked him 15 times and I'm like, bah, what are you doing? But I don't yell. Like that's not my knee-jerk reaction to yell anymore.
so let's go sideways a little here. How do you deal with the guilt of, like, how you did act with your kids, and how do you forgive yourself and move on?
So that's been a big work in progress, but I don't live in that guilt really. Like I'll think about it, I'm like, I can't believe I did that. But I don't wallow in it. Like I used to wallow in guilt
Mm,
because I wasn't making the changes. And so I just felt stuck. I was like just living in this spiral that just felt really gross, for lack of a better word. But now I'm actively making steps to change how I am, how I show up. And so now I'm like, I'm doing better every day. I'm always, and I've learned to apologize. Before I didn't want to apologize because if I apologized, then I felt like I was doing things wrong. And then the anxiety would come in, it was like, it was a spiral. And so now I'm very quick to apologize and be like, I'm so sorry, like if I do something. And we talk openly about my parenting in the past. They were younger, but I do talk about how like I used to drink because had anxiety and this is how the things, and they get it now. And I'm hoping that through them seeing my growth and my transformation, that maybe they will have tools to work with as they get older, which is a big part of why I do what I do. I want to help moms be the best that they can be so their kids have role models to look up to and know how to navigate life with a skill set of how to regulate your nervous system, how to breathe, how to move for your mental health rather than to fit into a bikini. Like if my daughters can learn that, then I feel like I'm winning.
yeah, and you know what? You said a crucial thing here. You want to be a role model for your kids, but whether you want it or not, you are a role model to your kids. Whatever you're doing is what they're learning, because that's what they're seeing. So, and I really like what you said too, you don't wallow in your guilt anymore because you made the decision to change, and you're not stuck anymore in that situation. And I think that that's when that's when the guilt starts shifting into, no, I know I'm making efforts, like I made mistakes in the past, but now I know I'm making efforts to not do that. And it doesn't mean that, when you decide that you will change certain things, that they will change instantly and you will become better instantly. You will have your little moments of like, go scream in your pillow or whatever. But these moments, when you make the decision to decide to choose another path, it's huge, because again, you're making a promise to yourself and you're keeping it. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And
What's funny is, it's so funny when you have like conversations with people, like when you asked me that about my guilt, and like I was like, well, I don't wallow anymore. I didn't even realize that. Like as I was saying, I was like, I haven't wallowed in guilt in ages, and I feel like I used to live in it. I lived in regret and guilt. Like that was kind of a place that I lived my life in. And now I was like, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, I don't do that anymore. It's a piece of my growth that I hadn't even really recognized until you said that. So thank you for bringing that to light.
my pleasure. And you know what? Talking about that with you, it makes me realize that when I was a younger mom, I used to go to bed always thinking about what I did not do and what did I do wrong. Like I would have my laundry list before going to bed, and that's what I would go to bed with. And I know a lot of moms that still do it. And I realize now that I don't do that anymore. My kids are a bit older, but now it's like different problems, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. But I mean, it's different reactions, different situations, but I don't do that anymore. When I go to bed, I'm at peace with myself, because I do know that, I do give my 100%. And it doesn't mean that I'm perfect, and it doesn't mean that I do everything right, but it does mean that I'm aware of what I'm doing, and I'm aware that I'm doing, those efforts and everything, so I don't go through that guilt list before bed anymore.
Yeah, and I agree. I used to lay in bed with all the anxious thoughts running of how I screwed up, how I'm messing my kids up, how I am not parenting well, all those things. And now that's not a part of my life because I'm doing everything that I know how to do. I'm doing it to the best of my ability. Is it 100% every day? No, but I'm always working towards it. And so I know like I'm giving my best effort, and I'm not going to fault myself for, not doing anything less than that. Like I'm like, this is hard work. It's hard work to make change, but it's like you see these payoffs and it's like, oh, you can't go back to what it was before. Like,
Yeah, no, and it's a hard job to be a mom, and we're allowed to not be perfect. And I think that too, society pushes an image of a mom that we should be, that perfect, angelic mom. It doesn't exist, guys. It doesn't exist. We do it too. Like, I remember sitting with other moms when my kids were younger, and then, I was having a drink with them. And we would start talking, and they would be like, yeah, I screamed at my kid the other day. And I was just like, you do that too? Oh, it felt like we were starting to share. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who do these things. So we're not alone. We all have our moments. It's just, I think that the crucial thing that you said is self-care. And it doesn't mean necessarily the spa. It means putting the oxygen mask on first, because otherwise, you become the role model that you don't want to be. So,
yeah.
and I want to address another thing. In pre-interview, I asked you, like, how did you stop drinking? And you just said, I made a decision, and I can't even coach on it just because I made a decision, and there's no, but let's just talk about it, because I think you probably played down a bit, but making a decision is the first step to any kind of change. And you made that decision, and 4 years later you're honoring your decision. So how did you stop drinking?
So it was, I think, two parts. One was with the anxiety and, the medication and the blacking out. It was like, I have to make a choice here. And taking the medication or blacking out were two options that I did not prefer. Like those were decisions like I was like, I don't choose that for me. And I knew that drinking was not working because that was panic attacks. So I was like, what can I do? And I believe that there were other people living in the world that weren't coping with alcohol and all these things. And I'm the type of person that if I decide I'm going to do something, I will do it. And up until that point, I don't believe that I believed in myself or I didn't want to. I think I was very afraid of what life would look like without alcohol because it was such a part of um, just my existence. The town we live in is full of microbreweries. All of my friends are still here from high school. We've been drinking buddies since we were in high school. I didn't know what life would look like without alcohol. But then suddenly it was like, well, it's got to be better than what it is. And it was the decision that it would just be better, I think was a big part of it. But then utilizing the tools alongside of it, that was the meditation and the gratitude journaling, which I'd heard about for a while as a method to help with anxiety, but I didn't think it was for me. I was like a go fast, have lots of fun, didn't want to calm down kind of person, and sitting sounded painful. Sitting with my thoughts sounded excruciating. And so I was like, I don't want to do that. But then it was like, well, maybe I'll try it. And then I did, and I was like, oh, I'm safe. I lived. Here we are. And then the gratitude journaling, like, that's like the simplest trick in the world that everyone should be doing to improve any aspect of life, I think. We have like three things. I would literally like three things that I was grateful for. And some days it was like, I'm grateful for hot water, like the most basics. But it got me out of that negative spiral where that anxiety and the drinking had me, was everything was negative. And this was like, oh, life is actually pretty good and you need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and thank you for sharing that. But I think that what we need to really keep from what you said is everything. But besides that, it's like you have to make the decision.
Mhm.
And, you didn't go through support groups, you didn't go through AAs or whatever. You just made the decision and you said that you actually found it not that hard.
Yeah, I did not ever once consider going back. Like there was never, but I also, because I'm going to say had, I'm a recovering perfectionist. I had a fear of failure and a fear of not doing things if I said that I was going to do them. So I didn't tell anyone I was quitting drinking. I just
Mm,
quit drinking. And my husband one day, like after 30 days, was like, are you ever going to drink again? And I was like, I don't know. But I never placed a limit on it. And I think taking away that restriction, like I do in everything else in my life, if I remove the restriction, then there's nothing exciting about it in that sense. And it was like, well, if I choose to have it, I could have it. But I realized life was so good without it. There was zero reason for me to go back to that. So now
wow.
now I still to this day, I'm like, I could drink if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I
You're
was
choosing not
miserable.
to.
Yeah, I'm choosing not to. It's my choice. I could have a drink. I'm a grown up. I could go to the liquor store and I could get alcohol and I could drink it, but I don't want to. There's nothing beneficial for my life.
No, and there's really nothing beneficial in alcohol in general.
No.
Whatever way you look at it, there's nothing beneficial. Probably besides the temporary buzz that you get, there's nothing beneficial. Um, but Starlyn, where can people find you?
I hang out mostly on Instagram. I'm at Starlyn Haneman. You can find me at my website, which is Wholesome Rebel Wellness. And I love to talk to people. So if you have any questions or just want to have a conversation, feel free to DM me. And also right now I have an anxiety toolkit that I'm giving out as a freebie. So that will be linked in my Instagram bio, or if you sign up for my newsletter on my website.
Awesome. And I'll put all your information with the podcast as well. Contact Starlyn. If you suffer from anxiety, or we touched quite a few things here today, but if you're a mother and you're wondering, like, how am I going to get through this? You're not alone. There's like people around you that want to listen and want to help you. Reach out to Starlyn. Starlyn, it was such a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful.
Yes. And to everyone who was here this week, thank you so much. And I will see you next week.